This year, as you all know, is the 70th anniversary. And the way I want to touch upon these themes is to basically go through my personal journey. I was born in Pakistan, and at the age of 11, with my mother, I came to this country to join my father, who, like many Pakistanis, Indians, Bengalis, Kashmiris, and West African Caribbean communities, came here from the former colonies as a source of cheap labour to help to rebuild the motherland. My father had worked in the foundries and factories of the steel city of Sheffield. In the 80s, Britain was in the grip of a deep economic recession which had been manufactured. All the ills that befell this society, mass unemployment, bad housing, poor education, all of these were blamed conveniently on the presence of Asian and Afro-Caribbean communities. What this did was to unleash a tidal wave of racism. Our communities came under siege, our places of worship were attacked, our homes were attacked, and we had racist murders in the streets of Britain. To counteract this racist violence, in every city where there was a significant Asian community, the second generation Asian youth organised themselves into defensive organisations called the Asian Youth Movement. And I was a founding member of the Sheffield Asian Youth Movement. Our membership consisted of Pakistanis, Indians, Bengalis, Kashmiris, Indo-Caribbeans, and East African nations. We were Muslims, we were Sikhs, we were Hindus, we were Christians, and some of us were atheists. It was racism that had made us close ranks. It was racism that opened up our eyes and made us politically aware. And racism made us come together, bridging cultural differences, bridging religion, ethnicity and class. And we began to ask the question, why is it did our parents come here in the first place? And along that journey we found out actually the reason why our parents came here is because Britain, through its colonial empire, had been back in the subcontinent. So what we have is a shared history, a shared culture, and a shared heritage. And this goes way beyond the boundaries that were created through the Radcliffe Line. During the 80s, when I would travel to Pakistan and visit my grandfather, who had a lot in common with, we would sit in the village beneath the starry sky, and he would, with a deep sense of sadness, he would turn to me and say to me, "Bete, tell me about your Sikh and your Hindu friends." He said, "Putter, have you been inside a Gurdwara? Have you been inside a mandir?" What he and I had in common is that both of us had actually lived in neighbourhoods where there were Sikhs, there was Muslims, there was Hindus and Christians. He had lived in those neighbourhoods in 47, and I had lived in those neighbourhoods here in England. My grandfather, in his most inspired moments, would tell me a story where him and his friends, in the midst of 47, escorted their Sikh families and friends out of Lal Kurti. This was riot mobs were going on, and they came under attack. And what happened there was that a shrapnel was lodged into my grandfather's arm, and he would touch this and tell me about what had happened. He never had it removed. He wanted it to remain as a constant reminder of the horror of 47. My grandfather's favourite poem about 47 was by the great Punjabi poet Ustad Daman. And he would recite this poem to me. Rati akhiyan di lali dasti ke roye tusivio or roye asivio. The red streak in your eye testifies that both you and I, we both cried. So this is the shared history that we have together. The carnage of 47. In this year, when we celebrate independence, which is important because obviously the peoples of the continent struggled, and it's right that we celebrate the liberation from British domination. But we must never ever forget what happened with the partition. Basically, this was the largest mass migration in human history. I think something like 2.5 million people were killed, and something like 75,000 women were raped. These are deep wounds. There's a body of literature that's been written about partition. And one of the greatest poets was a Pakistani Marxist revolutionary poet by the name of Faiz ibn Faiz. On the eve of partition, he wrote a poem called Freedom's Dawn, Subh Azadi. In there he says that the dawn that we now have is a false dawn. This is not the dawn that we fought for. And at the end of the poem, he beckons his comrades and his brothers and sisters to carry on the struggle for freedom, because we've yet to reach that destination.